Better blow that shit out. Oh, I didn't bring the incense. That's all right. Here we go. Let me tell you a little story. Yes. How I got to be so fresh. I was sitting there. Forget. Mm. Be getting into that shit. What's up, strong discernment? Damn, what's happening? No, went out of line. Wrong one. This one. Oh. There we go. Oh. Well, for those of you that don't know me and haven't heard of me before, I go by 8 Wind is Timeless. I am the holder of the infinite ball game created by the Hero Twins. I am also your galactic daddy-o, and welcome to my galactic patio from Minnesota to the universe. And I say, tonight's featured beer, we're going back to the old favorite, Alaskan Ale. So pop them if you got them, smoke them if you want them. That good amber color of beer. Haven't drank beer in like 6 days. Took a nice break. And so tonight, let me see. I said, hey, Lorenzo, what's happening? Thank you for joining me. I'm gonna tell you straight up, I'm gonna spoil the Matrix. So it's on HBO Max, so it's free. Or if you got those, you should have seen it by now. But just gonna go over a few things that, of case you might have missed. Gonna go over some stuff. Well, let me see if I can read this shit at first. Let me get this. All right. So, trying to get people to understand who Yadabat is. That's a name you should understand. This is a name that could be the holder of all this, I guess. That could be over all this darkness, could be over all this ill will to humans. And so let me just read a little bit. When the ruler saw his greatness, he only saw himself. He saw nothing else except water and darkness. Then he thought that he alone existed. His thought was made up complete by means of the world and appeared as a spirit moving to and from the waters. When the spirit appeared, the ruler separated the watery substance to one region and the dry substance to another. From the matter, he created a dwelling place for himself and called it heaven. And from the matter, the ruler created a footstool and called it earth. Afterward, the ruler thought, according to his nature, he created an indigenous being by the means of the world. And that is what Brother Bomber was calling a indigenous being, the Baphomet, or the black dragon without wings, or the black serpent without wings. He opened his mouth and cooed. The being opened his mouth and cooed. When his eyes opened, he saw his father said to him, E. So his father called him Yale. Again, he created the second son, cooed, opened his eyes, and he said, E. His father called him Eliah. 7 appeared in chaos as a Genesis being, their masculine name and their feminine name. Their feminine name, Yadabuas, is forethought, Sabathas, which is weak. His son is called Yao, and his feminine name is Ishupap, Sabbath. Feminine name is divinity. Adani's feminine name is kingship. So just wanted to give you a little bit of trying to understand this being. It goes on to saying, let me see. So just wanted to give a little bit that out. So again, soul ethics. I heard Matrix 4 had political corrections. I don't know if I want to see it. Maybe a little bit, but not a whole lot. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna just say this is what it really is. If you watch this new version, and I'll say this, I don't think it killed the series. I know Quantum of Science always says that the new Star Wars put the series back. It like took away from the series. I don't think this took away. I don't like watching movies. I just get bored. If they stupid, James Bond couldn't finish it. Hitman's Bodyguard, Wife's Bodyguard, whatever that shit was, stupid, couldn't finish it. Most movies I can't get through. My son didn't like it. My son gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I would agree. It's about that. But I'm going to tell you what the main point of it is. The main point of it is no different than the movie Hancock. If you remember the movie Hancock and Thiesman's her role, and what is she telling? We've been together throughout. Again, if you look at now Bob was just talking about this week of Marduk and Uani, where you had a brother sister. You have the brother sister husband wife, kind of like what King Tut is. So just like the same thing goes with Osiris and Osir, you have the brother sister husband wife as well. But it was really the twins from Hancock, if it broke down to it. It was interesting that they started it off as kind of like a virus in the system. And so you had some of the crew that worked for what used to be Zion, and now it was called Ion. It was called, the new was called Ion. Now they live in Ion, but you have them seeing the loop or the old Matrix. And that's another complaint, that there was too many flashbacks to the other movie. It was like they almost had to fill this movie with the other movie to make people like it. One of the scenes that you have to look for, you see him go home and take a shower. And I caught this, and my son said he caught it, but I don't know. He's in like the Bruce Lee mirror, Enter the Dragon. He had all the mirrors with all the reflection. So he's in multi-like get himself together, and one mirror looked like Mr. Miyagi. For those of you you remember who that is, you saw old short dude in one mirror, and that later came into play. And so the Matrix becomes infected. The old code came back into being. I thought like this. I looked at one thing I noticed. I've said this before. I said this the other night. In the Tsar world, it's a lot. Now, a lot of times, if you look at time, like if people are going through hallways of time, it's kind of set up like that. But the Tsar world even more. As I said the other night, the Tsar world, you actually go by scenes, and you can go into a being. You get into a being through scenes instead of doorways. So it was very, very much like that, where you can where you can step in. But this way, as we saw in the other ones, it was a way of going from one dimension of the Matrix to the other. Same kind of thing. They brought up where people was having the vision of the one again, the visions of Neo. Hey, run it up. What's happening? Yeah, with Will Smith. With Will Smith. Absolutely. It turns out that's what it is again. Now, one thing I've said before, again, Morpheus kind of hides into a vortex, but yeah, basically he hides in a vortex. But I've said this before. In illusion, free will can't exist. Free will will not exist in an illusion. It can only exist if things are real. So if we live in an illusionary world like The Sims or something, there is no free will. That was something that I got. So well, I've said this before. It's no illusion in free will. Free will cannot exist in illusion, because then again, it's like a program. There's no free will in a program. So if you look at a program, there's no free will in it, because it's something already written. Free will has to, just like I was saying about Yadabah, free will has to just flow, or it's not free will. That's the only way. It's truly you're left alone. Something I don't know if people would pick up. When they talked about it, they said the Matrix was so perfect, it had to be fake. That was an interesting point. I don't know if people could get that, but that's what it said. It said it is so perfect that the Matrix has to be fake. That was an interesting thing. And it's like what he said, like Cypher said, I know the stake. And then they do a Cypher scene where in the beginning, Neo is eating a steak, or one of them is eating a steak, and it was the Cypher reference. It was interesting because remember, Cypher was like, well, I know the steak ain't real. But again, they showed that they did a lot of things they did in the other show, and that was kind of disappointing. It was kind of like they was rushed almost. A couple things. So can Neo be free? Again, is he was inspired by the mind. I've talked about the mind. I'm one of the few that talked about the mind, or the nano bitch that made up really society. What they went to war over. When you had the war of the gods, they fought over the mind. It's a civilization builder, but was risen by the mind. Another part that came in there, and this is a way to get at people that are spiritual, because one thing they said was this. They said Neo was gifted with a powerful imagination. So that's making fun with all spiritual people that meditate. Hey, Barbara, ACWE. This gets into people that are spiritual, people that can go through the astral plane. But again, what they're mocking people and saying that you have powerful imagination, that there's no ethers, there's no czar, there's no entities. That's pretty much what they're trying to say. There's no even entities. All this is from a powerful imagination. Hey, Brittany, what's happening? So this is some things. Another interesting thing that we see now when people talk about Mandela effects, it says it's so much simpler to change history than redo it. That's kind of a phrase you see. So much simpler to change history than to redo And as I said again, talking about the steak reference as cipher, that nothing but cipher again. I don't know if a lot of people were picked up on this, but when Neo the new Neo is a program operator. He created the Matrix game. And this is like the Microsoft or Sony kind of big gamer, the number one game creator. But they said something interesting. They kept saying we want a lot of bullets. And again, if you really understand American history, the bullet is reference to Cortez. And Cortez with the metals conquering America with metals. So, but it goes back and forth. Is Neo the architect? Also, did Neo work for the machines? That comes into play later. Did Neo work for the machines? Was he an agent for the machines? But Neo is the architect. One thing interesting is, as you see in the end, the cat, Dougie Hauser dude, he depends on the cat for the ultimate program. The cat held the ultimate program. So, but you see the cat that freezes time, and this goes back into Robert Heinlein's work, the cat that walked through walls. That's how they used him in the first one when they saw the vu, that in the book, the cat that could walk through walls. And the cat's name was Jew. One of his guys' name was the cat's name was Jew. One of his guys was named, where did I put that? Jude. Yeah. So one of his best friend, who's one of his handlers, his name was Jude. So we have Jude, the cat, and then we have Jude, as in Judan. So Jude is a controller. And then again, they have, when he finally goes with this new group from the future, they go open the door, and the door is white. So we got to stepping into the light. We got to say, hey, PJ, we got to stepping into the light again. Go into the, boob whisper, go into the light, Bobby, go into the light. So we got that same bullshit. They couldn't not put that in again. They open the door and the white light is there, because you see them opening the doors as they're going through the hallways, white light. And then he goes into the Matrix and there's white light. So that was some interesting. I saw that. We have a freedom of DNA, zombie modes. Now, one thing that kind of had you guessing, like if you remember, the architect always said there were 6 other ones, but from this movie, you get that Neo was the one every time. The Neo was the one every time. So all 6, it was always Neo. You kind of get that out of this movie. And Ben, as I said, did he work for the machines? Was he truly for man, and was he for the machines? Another thing that was kind of interesting, they used the blue pill as a loop. So a couple times as he's meeting this Morpheus, and Morpheus again is almost like a ghost, but a computer kind of beaded ghost that can go through electronics and stuff. So Morpheus was that kind of character. Almost Dr. Manhattan-ish, really. It's the same dude that played the melanated Dr. Manhattan on HBO, but his powers was almost like that. They had a couple characters with just AI-driven characters, AI physical characters. And they when they go to Ion, they say that Ion is helped because some of the machine goes over to the people side. They got some machines to turn against the machines. But the blue pill, what's as interesting is every day Neo has to take these blue pills. And if you remember, it was the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill is a loop. That was kind of interesting. I don't know if a lot of people would catch that him taking the blue pill every day and then wanting him to take the blue pill every day to supposedly relate to his psychosis. But the blue pill was a loop. One thing my son said, they show, again, you remember, they can go into the mirror like I'm having what it is. Mercury. You know how Mercury looks when you up and down. Mercury will be solid on one end. Well, remember, when they go into the mirrors, it's the same thing. But it's something that I talk about too, as I was saying with flat plane, and something the flat plane people don't talk about is the mirror world, because the mirror world is going to exist. In some ways it does. That's why that mirror exercise stuff, that is totally the mirror world shit. As I said before, it's going to be a time, and maybe not in my life, but it's going to be a time with this thing where you can trade with the mirror. If the mirror is looking better than you that day, you can go in the mirror, image come out. I mean, it's just a matter of time before that. But they kind of showed that the mirror world, the mirror world will come out. So, but again, the whole movie is a sear and a set. I mean, that's what you got to get. Welcome back to the real world. Now, one thing I didn't really understand, and I brought the question up, was Neil doesn't wear the glasses, but everybody else wears the glasses. They never really explain it. Maybe somebody can explain why the glasses. Neil doesn't wear them. Again, he's the one doesn't need glasses because he can see clearly. Now, the Morpheus character was once an agent, and so the agent started seeing code, and so he was seeing the Matrix was coming in, and so this agent who was Morpheus switches sides, and he becomes a guide for Neo again. And again, it's Marduk versus Osiris, Set versus Osiris, or Cain and Abel. I mean, it's the twins. It really comes down to the twins. You got the hero twins out of America. You got the twins that's Romulus and Ramulus or something like that. The twins for Rome. Adam and Eve are even twins. If you look at it, then they have twins. But that's what really the breakdown is the twins. False. So what Neo had was a false sense of self. He was okay with being the avatar. Uses machines to take sides. Again, as I said, Morpheus was the same Dr. Manhattan. The Morpheus character kind of has the abilities of Dr. Manhattan. A little of Queen of the Damned. So what they did is they rebuilt. So as Morpheus, remember, Neo and Trinity dies, and they're in the last one. They're in the city of the machines. Well, the story gets told how they were kept and rebuilt by the machines, and then the machines put them back into the Matrix to control them. But again, very much. But as they're in the pods, and then they wake him up, they have just two pods above all the other pods. I don't know if people will get this, but the people that read the Anne Rice version of the Queen of the Damned, what you had is the king and the queen had evolved so high spiritually where they just were statues and they lived in the ethers. So they didn't need to be on earth anymore. They just were statues. And so that's how the ones that served them got their energy. They came and saw the statues. But again, you have them lifting their consciousness up so high, they're statues. The Queen of the Damned movie didn't show that, but if you read the book, you would get this. And so very much Queen of the Damned with them. Another person, Io is Inner Earth. We have the same thing in King Kong of Inner Earth. Zion was Inner Earth. And like I was telling my son, I don't know where you could go deep enough to Inner Earth to get away from water. The Russians are ones that went deepest and they couldn't get away from water. Now my son was like, where they're in a cave and there'd be pockets of caves, and the way they was able to breathe is they was able to take water out the air, moisture out the air and create water out of it. But I'm like, when you go deep into the earth, you find water. But that's what they showed. So how do you get away from it? Then they talk about the noise of the Matrix, the noise of, even as they said in the other ones, here we are depending on the machines to live. So for survival, we got machines trying to kill us. And remember, and this one all talks about they made peace with the machines. They had a treaty with the machines where they weren't attacking each other. This is something that, again, they kept saying is nothing travels faster than light. And technically not even bits. Bits technically don't travel faster than light. The one thing that does is time walkers. And I'm the last time walker. Time walkers travel in light. If you look at Doogie Howser's character at the end, when Neo doesn't Neo thinks he's still going to have his same powers once he goes in the Matrix, and Doogie Howser shows him that he doesn't. Doogie Howser is almost using time walking abilities on film. It's the first time I've ever noticed that, where you are faster than light, because again, Neo is the light who can move fast as light. I was like, somebody got a hold of them papers and put that in there. But they talk about that Ion is built by people and the machines. As I mentioned earlier, they've got the AI. They've got two AI that's like these marble beings. So Nepturial Queen, what's happening? But it goes back to the machines fought each other. Here's one I didn't catch in the first Matrix that I didn't understand, because remember, when Neo would bend down, he kind of bend down like Superman. He'd be on one knee. And yeah, I did catch this. Okay, if anybody, I don't know if y'all ever heard of Simon Magnus. Simon Magnus is the only person in history that could fly, physically fly. There's very little about him, but he's the only person in reported history that can physically fly. One of the fake parts of the Bible tried to stick in there later is Peter and Simon's matching who could fly and who couldn't, and that Peter, and we know Peter's a fake character that they say started the church, and it's like Peter was able to fly and Simon Magnus fell and broke his neck. That's some made up shit, because they had no answer. They had no answer for this Simon Magnus. So when you see Neo trying to fly, that comes from Simon Magnus, because what they said that Simon Magnus would do is he would bend down and talk to the earth. And from speaking to the earth, he did it every time, they said. And from speaking to the earth, he was able to push off and fly. The only person in recorded history that could really fly. And not that angel flying. I mean, physically fly as being a man and not an angel. No wings. But they did do a reference to him, which I thought was interesting. You catch two things interesting in the Doogie Howser office, because Doogie Howser is a controller. He's a controller. And we talk about how Hollywood people have these controllers, handlers. Doogie Howser is his handler. But what's interesting, we see an Odin statue, the one-eyed god. We see a statue of a Moor in the background, which I thought was interesting. The lamp was a Moor. I thought that was interesting. They bring back the Maleviches. Remember, if you really follow the Maleviches, and people talking about Jesuits and stuff, but the Maleviches, because if people understand that the Pope was stolen from Italy, and I think it was a 10-year period that the Pope was actually in France. So for 10 years, the papal seat was in France. And so this kind of goes a little bit. But remember, the Maleviches, the French guy, was always a rogue program. Of course, they attack Neo because they're a rogue program, and even Doogie Howser, they were outside of Doogie Howser's influence as he created this new Matrix. So you have the program again. But again, it comes down to resurrecting Adam and Eve. It's the same thing. Asir, Aset, brother, sister, husband. You see this. This is, but it says, what makes fiction real? That was something they said. What makes fiction real? And then what you see is a swarm or a population of agents. Because remember, what they had before is that the agents had the ability to, like, be an entity with anybody. They're able to pop in anybody's self. Remember that. As entities, they could go into anybody, and that's called a step in. They could step into anybody. Well, this time they had what's called a swarm, where instead of just one agent at a time responding to the given situation, it basically you had a population of agents. And so that's what they had, a swarm. And Doogie Howser says something interesting. He says, chaos makes human produce more energy for the machines. So what they're saying is, and it's something that, if you remember, I think it was 2, the architect talked about, said he tried to make the perfect matrix and the people weren't unhappy. He made everything perfect. He made people have everything. He gave them heaven and the people were unproductive. The people did not like heaven. He gave the original Matrix, he talks about giving people heaven. And so what Dookie Howser is he said humans like chaos. I mean, look at what's going on now. Look at how many people are happy to put their picture on Facebook and say, I took one, I took two, I took three, and they box themselves in. Remember what witches do when you want to bind, you put yourself in the circle? Remember that? When witches want to bind shit, they put themselves in a circle. You don't get that? You take the shot and they say, well, circle yourself up, show this. You don't get that to bind? A lot of people won't get that. But chaos makes humans produce more energy for desired fear and effect. Okay, Seti or Sika, Seti, the little girl that becomes the oracle, which she's grown now. It's interesting when they go into the final battle. If those remember, what's the Greek mythology, Battle of the Gods, maybe. But remember, you see this Zeus, when Zeus is looking down on his son. Remember, he was using a clear bowl of water, and they're able to look through the humans. They use shit. I mean, this is shit they've been doing since the 60s. You see 60 movies where the gods is looking in a clear pool of water to see what humans are doing. They use this. And so Seti or Satika, she is looking at, and they have to do, as Neil broken out, Neil sees that Trinity is still alive. So again, Neil has to go back and try to save Trinity. They do a bullshit storyline where in this Matrix, she's a married woman, but there's an attraction. That goes back to Hancock. And that goes back to Hancock, where Hancock didn't understand how they was kind of cool, and they end up kissing while the husband wasn't looking. It was just that automatic attraction. That's Hancock again. I thought that was not very clever. But it got the woman is all powerful. Remember, we've got doubting of one, doubting Thomas, which goes into, remember, Jesus was a twin. Jesus was a twin, and we have the doubting Thomas. That's why if you look at what I've got here, the very first gospel, very first words written about Jesus is the Gospel of Thomas. And again, Judas Thomas is said to be his Judas the twin. So we have the doubting Thomas again. So the Gospel of Thomas is the first writing, and he's originally Jesus is a twin. So we see that again. Yeah. So yeah, you see Jesus and Thomas in the end. Gilgamesh and the hairy creature, I can't think of that name, but remember, Gilgamesh is kicking everybody's ass so much that the gods send down and nails down something that can equal Gilgamesh. But this motherfucker come down there, and he's fucking all the animals around the watering hole. Read the whole story, but they find Gilgamesh is equal. They help him try to find immortality. And so the together is the light grounded. We see, okay, so as they're trying to get away, getting out the matrix, they don't need hard lines anymore to get out the matrix. And you see the machine making people just jump out of windows. Why one of the pictures that quantum science put up, something we see from 9/11, when the man jumps upside down and he has the leg curved, the hanging man. And we see that in the very first, we see that in one of the ads of science showed. But remember the dude who jumped from 9/11, he was perfectly upside down, and he showed the bent leg of the hangman. Of course, they show this again in this Cosmicati. So yeah, it's about 5 pages. But one thing that it does prove, I'll say this, is one thing that you have to know is it shows your energy signature. And I'm going to show you how the matrix shows you your energy signature. If you're seeing the matrix code go down, each code is not just a scene, each code is people. Like when they're looking at code, they can tell this code is so and so. This code keeps repeating, so this person is in the scene. And so when I talk about energy signatures, they show what you are. And that's what Brother Bar talked about in his last show, is being an electrical pulse. So as you die, you go into being electrical pulse. But matrix in is, hey, we can keep these pulses alive. We can keep these electrical pulses alive. And through the electrical pulses, we can put you in another illusion. If you understand that. I say what they sell, what people sell their souls, they sell that energy signature. So the energy signature dies. Hey, Crazy Sarge, reflective surfaces are like mirrors. There you go. And that's kind of why they do that. But as I'm saying, this was done years and years ago. This is an old gods kind of use, because Seti becomes God. Remember, he's the one that turned the sun back on. So she's the archetype. And they do this thing to get Trinity free from the pod. Again, the two pods is our Sar and our Set, sleeping brothers, sisters, twins, and how they said again, will is a big part of this again. And like, if they read her mind, and they needed a step in to kind of help her make the transition. So again, we see a step in. Not only the step in with the Smiths, but this time we see the good guys use a step in. So they need to step in to help Trinity come back with more power. And so we didn't see the step in, but when they free her mind, they throw that free will in there. There's like, well, she rejects us. There's nothing we can do about it. Wait a minute, you done went through all this shit to free this bitch, and then if the bitch say, fuck you, I'm staying, that's just it. Again, it's free will. So free will is the thing you gotta walk away from is twins and free will, which free will can't exist in illusion. But yeah, what's happening, Crazy Sarge? Yeah, definitely ring around the roses. Hey, Charles. So 6 out of 5, and I'm sure other people will bring in stuff that I might have missed. But again, I got 4 or 5 pages of it. I liked it. I didn't think it killed the series. I really didn't think it killed it. I thought it helped move it on. I looked at all the going back and the flashbacks as filler, though. Kind of disappointing that filler. It seems like they could have added more to the storyline. Relied a lot on, again, Trinity's opening scene from 1 is reshot. There's a lot of scenes they just back and forth. I thought that was filler for time instead of actually helping the plot, helping the story. A little disappointed with that. Well, yeah, you can watch it and see what you pick up. Because I didn't think my son saw the old man. We saw the mirrors, because why he was the old man is, remember in the first Matrix, when Morpheus takes him into the computer practice world, the computer simulation, before they go into the Matrix to prepare, he said, this is your self-realization. This is what you think you look like. So they had tricked him so bad, as his self-realization, he looked like regular young Neo. But to everybody else, he looked like this 70-year-old man. So that's how they fuck with him. So everybody else in his real world, everybody else looked at him as an old man that's still creating these video games. But the Matrix had fooled him. Whereas the mirror's right there to see his true self, and he missed it. Because in one of the reflections of all the multi-mirrors shows that old man. He was blind to it. So I thought that was clever writing. That was clever writing. Hey, what's happening, Conspiracy University? Just did to make a breakdown of the Matrix. That's on the didn't go back to the movies. Oh, now I'm getting the sniffles. I like the movie. It didn't bore me. Again, I don't like movies. I get bored very easily if they stupid. I can't stand stupid. The shit is stupid. Click. I can't watch it. I didn't find it that. Being a enthusiast of the series, again, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It could have been better. I'll say this though: the fighting scenes was excellent. The cinematography, excellent. It was shot very well. The way it was shot, great. The gun battles were great. The karate scenes, the martial arts scenes were great. The cinematography was great. Screenplay, little to be desired, but the way it was shot. Hey, Reese, thank you for joining. I want to sue the new Spider-Man just now with my little boy. Oh, you just saw it. Okay. Oh, it's garbage. You didn't like it. Okay. Straight garbage. Okay. Yeah, because my friend is kind of in comics, and he took his little boy opening night, and he said some of the same thing. Like, excuse me, his boy studies them too, and he was like, "Wait a minute, where did this stuff come from?" So that was kind of interesting. That was kind of interesting. The changes that true people notice. So I'll probably go see it. Maybe that. There's one other movie that's out there. Oh, The Kingsman, I think, comes out Christmas too. So that's probably what I'll do Christmas is go see one of the movies. Smoke some shit and go up in there and have a couple drinks. Movie theaters is nice. You can smoke in the car, go up into the movie theater, get you a goddamn drink. They'll bring you some wings. They got it now where they will bring you the goddamn wings to where you're sitting. So want some wings or pizza, they will bring it out to where you damn sitting. That's pimpy to me. You just got to go get the beer. Or drinks. They sell hard liquor in there too. So I liked it overall. Worth to watch. But pay attention to the little details. Yep, pay attention to the little details. And I'll go see Spider-Man too. We got it. We got a version of it. It's not very clear, so I'd rather see the clear version. I don't know that the Matrix, we watched it at home. I don't know that it would make me want to see it at the movies on the big screen. He said, Crazy Sarge said the Kingsman better be good. That's one of the few movies I've saved is the Kingsman 2, and it was stupid as hell. Kingsman 2 was stupid. But so we'll see. And generally, I'm so disappointed with most movies. I get disappointed with them. And yeah, I have very little patience, and I get disappointed very easy with movies. Like I said, my patience just ain't there, and I'll be like, fuck this movie. Herkimer Diamond. Now you can get these. They ain't just in New York, because there's a Herkimer, New York. Like we was talking about diamonds, you see this has, let me see, to tell almost all diamonds have a little bit of carbon. I don't know if that's coming up to see the carbon. I don't know if you can see the black dots. Let me see. There it is. You can see the carbon there. And it facets. A diamond has to facet, I believe is how it's pronounced. Like the channeling of light. That's what a diamond does. This one's a little clearer. Has less carbon in it. Powerful stones, though. Again, diamonds are amplifiers. These really pretty in rings, too. I know a couple of people got some jewelry made out of it. I feel like you that most movies suck. I definitely do. The Matrix series are a slap in the face to try to give people some of the truths and reality, but the wool covering the sheep's eyes. Like a lot of what I pull, a lot of people ain't pull out. A lot of people wouldn't catch it. A lot of people wouldn't catch it. Again, like when he finally gets convinced, because they try to get on the Matrix a couple times, he doesn't go. When they finally convinced him, they're on this rooftop, and they open the door, and all of a sudden it's got the white in there. No other time did you see the white come out. And it's like, again, it's going to the light, Bobby. And I just like, look at this bullshit. I was like, look at this shit, the light. Neo finally goes into the Matrix to work with the people. He has to go into the light. And I'm like, they don't put this bullshit in there again. Boob whisper. Boob whisper again. Go into the light, Bobby. Go into the light. Don't judge me, but I never saw the first Matrix, or shall I say I watched it when it first came out. You never liked it. I'll say this. I say more so the Matrix than the Terminator movies, far as kind of what I experienced when I first astral traveled. Some of the things that appealed to me. Now, the Ghost Twins, again, Matrix 2 had the Ghost Twins. Again, we see the twins. So the theme a lot of times is the twin. If you look at the relationship between Smith and Neo, Technically, they're twins. What do they say the devil is? The devil is bad. God or Jesus is good. The twins are in every show. The twins. That's one reality, is the good and the bad. So that's something they can't get away with. And a lot of that intrigued me. One thing my son said, my oldest son had the video, but I had never watched the Animaniac or the Animatriac. It came on Cartoon Network last week, or yeah, Cartoon Network. It came. I'd never watched it before, so it gave an interesting background on the real wars, something that the movie leaves out. Um, you got to watch Donnie Darko. Yeah, I watched it. My son loved it. My son has all the characters. Kind of boring. I watched it with my son, and I kind of got some of it. They got a little more out of it than I did, but I got to watch it again. Maybe I watched it with closed eyes, but I watched it with my son, and they loved it, and I just thought it was slow. I got a lot of Jimmy Stewart played in a movie where Harvey. You could, and I know a lot of people watching don't know who Jimmy Stewart is, but Jimmy Stewart played in a movie where he had an imaginary character called Harvey, and Harvey was imaginary friend of Jimmy Stewart. His name was Harvey. Harvey was a big 6-foot rabbit, and so Donnie Darko to me had a little bit of that Harvey in it from Jimmy Stewart. So maybe that's why I watched it in closed eyes. I got to watch that again. So to see if I catch something that I didn't catch before. I thought it was kind of boring. So I've watched it with my son. My oldest son really loves it, but I thought it was boring. I didn't really like the screenplay, but I'll watch it again. Maybe my eyes was closed to it. And maybe, but let me say this. So Dark City, those of you who aren't hip to Dark City would be considered the first Matrix. So the Dark City, the first character is Neo. And Dark City really gives it to them peoples, because it says that them peoples come from some other planet and had to come on Earth, and they did not have a soul. Oh, and that's another part. You see imprinting. You see Neo getting imprinted, and that goes into Dark City, because Dark City, to break the doctor to give, and I can't think of the hero's name in Dark City, but the Dark Keeper Sutherland imprints this character, which would be the Neo, imprints him with these other memories. So it would be easy for him to break the Matrix people, to break free. And they were able to tune. And by controlling people, they were able to tune. And Dark City gives a beautiful message. It's like you win the lottery. So one day you just sitting around in, your little place, and it seems like what they do is every night they put motherfuckers to sleep. Every night they put people to sleep, and then they change the fractals around them. And Dark City is the first movie to show fractals, how fractals move. But it's like, imagine this: you won the lottery, you living in the castle, you got a yacht. What is it? I've got a castle and a yacht. What is it? I'm J. Edgar Fudd millionaire. I got a castle and a yacht. But anyway, once you live in the castle, you wouldn't even remember what it felt like to live in wherever you lived before. You would that quickly forget about the life you lived before. In Dark City, but tuning is something, and imprinting is something you see in this movie too. I made that note. But City, again, these beings is them peoples. These peoples, they say these peoples don't have a soul. So they need to study humans and put humans in different conditions, situations to become or gather a soul. Almost kind of like the mind. The mind wants to have a soul. The mind wants to be a living being with a soul, not just technology. So it's the mind trying to be the living being. The machine being the living being, the machine being able to experience. So imprinting Dark City. Dark City's pretty good though. Yeah, Dark City was deep. My ex-wife and I went to see it, and we was kind of blown away. I didn't know what it was about. And this was before the Matrix movie came out. Dark City came out 1 or 2 years, because we were shit. We were still living in Michigan. Well, we were living in Michigan with the Matrix, but I don't think our children were born when we saw Dark City. Or it could have been when my son was a baby and one of the first, because when you have new child, a baby, you don't go out very often the first few months. And it might have been the first time we went on a date after my son was born. So that might have been what we saw, I think. We went to dinner and had, and someone else the baby for us at the time. So it might have been Dark City. So yeah, Dark City is kind of deep too. Quantum of Science gets into a little bit, but it basically is the character in Dark City, no doubt. The Matrix and Dark City go together. I was 1 year old when it came out. I was grown when all of them came out. I be hearing people say shit like Nick said. What did he say? Like 63, I was 2 years old. So, I was around. Don't remember a whole lot from back then, but I was around 63. I was 61. So Nick's 2 years older than my brother. 2 years, yeah, because my brother was born in 66. And I was born in 61. So we're almost about years apart. So, yeah, I've been around. I'm 60, so I've been around a long time. And it's funny, like I'm dating this girl, and this girl is 47, and she has a 9-year-old. He's 8 or 9. He's younger than my daughter. And it's what's really funny. This cat Palestinian. His daddy was a Palestinian that lived over in Jerusalem or wherever they live, but he's a Palestinian. But it's that thing about, his dad sees him on the weekends, but he ain't a real dad because his dad is a hustler and working. And it's like, do I want to be 70 with looking at an 18-year-old that really ain't my son and I'm around him? I mean, that's the kind of thing I look at. 10 years go by quick. In 10 years, I'll be 70. And here's this 18, 19-year-old. Would I have to shoot him? That's like, what? That mentality won't be gone. But it's like, I just look at it. Do I really want to do that? I've raised 5 sons. 3 of them I raised pretty much by myself. My 26-year-old son, I was giving it to because she was drug addict, tripping. I was like, fuck leaving my son just everywhere. I just took him at 2. My other son is 20, 6 months. She gave to me at 6 months. Her going out and everything was more important. I'll tell this story. When we became separated one time and she wanted me to take my son, she threw my son out of a moving car window at me. She was driving and just threw him out the car while she was driving. True story. True story. She just threw him out the window at him. I had to catch him or he hit the street, hit the curb. 2-year-old. She just threw him out the window at me while she was moving. True story. My other son in there, I've had him since 4 when he lives with me. And I got sole custody of all of them when him and there was finally got custody. So yeah. And that's one thing. It's like I look at fathers, but it's like she wasn't a good mother. I mean, that's just how it is. This bitch was not a good mother. I mean, you shape or form, was she a good mother? It's like she cannot look at her children and say she's a good mother to her children. It's like my son that gets mad because I pushed him so hard in sports. There's not one time in his life that he can really look at me and say, I wasn't a good father. Because even as he's telling these stories that frustrated him, one thing he has to say is, you was there. You was at every game. My little boys, all when they played football, all when they played baseball, taking them to practice, picking them up, signing them up to get them in sports, and they got old enough and said they didn't want to do it, I fell back. I was like, I ain't gonna switch them. I don't beat women, but I've been whooping ass that day. Oh yeah. And that's a true story. She can't deny that shit. That's what she did. She would do it. She would knock on a motherfucker door and then take off. Leave the child. You open the door, it's a baby there, 1 or 2-year-old. No adult around. She done knocked on the door and then just take off. One time when she was a drug addict, she went over to her cousin's house, woke her cousin up in the middle of the night. Her cousin had babies herself. Cousin comes downstairs, lets her in. They come in with my son, her and one of her cousins, her other cousins. The cousin who lived there went upstairs to use the bathroom. She said, I'll be back down. They take off and leave my son. Her and her other cousin take off and leave my son. Leave it with this girl. So the next day they knocking on my door. My son is in pajamas. I had dressed him when she took him, and then he's in pajamas. Like, why the fuck is he dressed like this? And she told me the story. Hey, Mr. Taylor, what's happening? And so, you know, these are some. So she can't ever look at herself in the mirror and say, I was a good mother, that I did the best I could, because she didn't. She was a narcissist. And so all she really cared about was self. And that's the way it is. So what is the way Sly put it? When the scales come out, your shit got to be lighter than a feather. And so as I said on one of Sly's show one time, or maybe Nick, a comment, I've always been a healer. And so when my children get sick, I had another cousin, like I said the other night, I had a cousin just die recently. I had a little cousin that died when she was 6 years old from the flu back in 86 or 87. Parents just didn't know, didn't take her in time, and she died at 6 years old. So I always took that seriously. And the big old boy that lives here with me, the big 6'5", 250, he had a cold and flu one day. And even despite me having to go in, be at 6 o'clock, I stayed up all night waiting to break his fever. I got like maybe hours to lay down. I didn't get to sleep. I laid down for an hour and then I had to go to work. But I stayed up all night breaking his fever. I used stones, I used cold rags, just everything, just up with him, right there with him to try to break his fever. And so that's a fight. And I was like, I on the chin, like, oh, this is what it took to. And if you think of the opposite, because you didn't do that and something seriously happened to the child, what is too much? For our parents, what is too much? They talk about stories of women being able to, a car fell on a child some kind of way, and the woman being able to pick the motherfucker up and somebody pulled the child out, picking up a goddamn car. I mean, true parents do this kind of shit. That's what it's called, being a parent. You parent. And if that little bit of kind of work can save a child, I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was never too much for them. I have a child that can't read. He's 20 years old and can't really read. And I fought for all years he was in school. I fought these people hard. And I'm telling these people, this shit can't work. Is he going to be able to read? Is he going to be able to comprehend? My last children didn't graduate on academics. They graduated on behavior. And that's pushed out. They talk about in the 60s. These children's grandmother and grandfather, neither of them could read and write. What was the word we used to call it? Functional illiterates. I heard that word, functional illiterates. I worked with a dude. He would take a paper to work every day and he couldn't read. I know he couldn't read. He was just faking it. He'd take a paper every day because I know he couldn't read because he always had people do his paperwork that was under him. He couldn't do the paperwork because he couldn't read. But he would fake it every day, take papers like he could read every day and couldn't read. I know he couldn't read. But we have functional illiterates, and that's what both of her parents got pushed out, to get them numbers, to get the funds. And this is what I saw happen to my son. I had to sue these people over my youngest son. I had to take him to court because I wanted to take him out of the school. That I let him talk me into putting him in this school. I didn't strive academics. It's all about behavior. And I let him take him out to high school. I was like, I want to send him back to the high school. These motherfuckers fought to take him to court over this shit. Judge and everything. I had to deal with judge and everything, all this shit. And finally, I what it's all about. How I keep costing me money and I wasn't going to win. So, but that was their thing, is they wanted to get the number to graduate with him because of behavior and not academics. Now, luckily, he has a little more going. He can read better. Video games have taught him to read, but I get it. Unfortunately, it does seem to come with the territory with modern day women. Yeah, Maurice, I will say so. not women bashing because I had a great mother. I had a great stepmother in some ways. I mean, the way she helped my ex-wife, as I was telling a story, my first wife, I didn't love her. She was my high school sweetheart, but I knew me. I knew me. And I knew when I moved back to Michigan that it was going to be new women. But one thing I knew I set her up to be successful for life. I knew that. I knew I had that instinct. I had that that not in instance. I knew that what I could do is put her in a position to be successful for her life, for the rest of her life. My stepmother was a teacher at the school system. Soon as we moved up there after she graduated from college in 85. Within 6 months, she was substitute teaching. And within 4 years, she had tenure, back when you could still get tenure. And she worked that job. She got her 30 some years. She still does some part-time work. But I knew I would set her up for the rest of her life. And I'll say this, the same as my last ex-wife. She was such a drug addict, living in Michigan, a drug addict, gone. But if I brought her here, it would help her. Now, I had to go through hell until she woke up. But bringing her here 15 years ago saved life. Now, she may not admit it, but it saved her life. It took her away from that life of addiction. So, Captain Save-A-Ho. Just went through something similar. Sleepless nights is always worth it. It is. It's the same when they first born. Like when you have a baby the first time and it ain't sleep. Like I remember my son hated to. He would lay there in bed with us and go to sleep. Pick him up gently, put him in his bed. He did not like sleeping in his crib. My 20-year-old son, same thing with him. And here we are. He's a baby. We still got a 5, 6-year-old that's got to go to school, and we're not getting any sleep. I'm still working, and this baby's up all night. We're switching, feeding him. And one day she was just like, she put him in the little wind-up chair and stuck a bottle in his mouth, and he dropped a bottle out of his mouth, and that's how he slept for a couple of weeks. My youngest daughter, same thing. I was like, watch this. Put her, and now, by the time the new little things go, like they don't go back and forth. These motherfuckers would go in a circle, and you could turn music lights on shit, and they go in a circle. It took her in a little circle, but she slept like that for about a month or two. And then one day I was like, we putting this little mug in the bed. And of course she hollered all night. She's like, I remember my ex was like, well, how long is she gonna cry? I'm like, till she gets sleepy. She cried till about 4 a.m. She fell asleep. And from then on, she went in her crib. So these are just things that you learn. So your heart is good. The women will have regrets. I think so. I mean, I think she'll have regrets. It's just funny. She wants to be miscredited and have good credit. Hell, she could, like her and I could have bought houses years ago. I mean, she just didn't see it. She was too selfish. And that's funny. As a mother, you wouldn't think a mother would be selfish, but she was selfish. And she wasn't raised that way, but the drug addiction, being a drug addict and have no self-worth, because when they drug addicts and they do anything for drugs, they have no self-worth. So she came here, she regained some self-worth. So she wasn't a good parent. It's like my stepfather, my mother would say he wasn't a good husband, he was a good father. That's what my mother was saying. He wasn't a good husband for her, but yet for me and my mother, he was a great father. If indeed, that's why I have no problem taking children to practice, picking them up. I mean, like where my daughter would do baton, we got to drive. It's like a nice half-hour drive. So, if I have to go there and back, that's an hour. Like if I have to drop her off, because sometimes it's 2, 3 hours, I have to go back. That's an hour. I'm in the car. But I had it done for me. I had it done for me. I feel obligated to help her or any of them. I'll do the same thing. So, and that is it, is you live the life without any regrets. And you have all these people that they want to change. It's like my father was a high school athlete only, and like nowhere near good athlete as me. But he'll tell this story how he was a world class track athlete, and I heard him tell this lie since I was a little boy. And last time we talked, he mentioned that he's like, "Well, you know, I was a world class athlete, a world class." He would say he was a world class sprinter. Now I don't know, guys, but I don't know how many high school athletes that's all you ever did was world class sprinter. Like in Michigan, we go A, B, C, D. He went into C school. So he was C competition. He didn't get a scholarship to run track anywhere. So to be world class, you would at least think a world class sprinter, you would at least think you went to the Penn relays, you was all state, you got a scholarship to college. It's like my godfather got a scholarship to play at Iowa. And he tells the story like it was him. It's like, no, nigga, you didn't go. You was, when I was a baby, you was in Kalamazoo with us. You wasn't in Iowa. And it's just funny how he had, and this is what you have to out there. People tell lies so often that to them the lie be real. It's like almost muscle memory. Like when you know how to jab, you just never forget how to jab, or you know how to make a muscle like this. It's muscle memory. With some people, lies be like that. They have told that lie so much that to them the shit is true. Now, my dad is losing his mind a little bit of dementia, but he has told that lie so much and nobody ever calls him on it. Wow, oh, that's impressive. And then if they ask him where he ran, he start making up shit. But he's floated life where nobody hardly checked him. My shit is in the yearbooks at A&T. I got pictures of me with the team and the trophy at A&T. So I ain't got to lie. I got the scrapbooks, the pictures in newspapers. I was in the newspaper in Greensboro. I ain't got to lie about that shit. The shit can be proven. But if you ain't good, but to give my father his props, he graduated from college, got his master's. He was the human personnel director for the city. So, you know, there was things he had good traits. I was telling my mother, and I've said this before, the funniest thing he ever showed me is my dad. I grew up in pool halls. My dad was a gambler. My grandfather was a gambler. So I grew up in pool halls, crap joints, gambling, illegal gambling joints, and card joints, places where they play cards. He would just carry me everywhere. And that was the story I was going to tell. I kind of forgot which story I was going to tell. I'll tell you a story. So one time, his second wife, not my step, but it would have been my stepmother at the time. She gave this nigga money to take me to go get some sandals. We go to the pool hall. He goes into the back and he gambles the little $10 away and loses it. And I bust him out. I'm like, what about my sandals? He said, oh, we'll get your sandals in a couple of days. I ain't got the money. I'm like, you just had the goddamn money. She gave you the goddamn money and you lost it. And he couldn't say shit because what I said was true. This nigga tried to make a hard six, $10 on a hard six and lost it. He crapped out. Oh, I could have made it. There you go. But that's some shit he can't lie about. But I told the story before. My dad told these niggas, he's like, if I catch you driving across the street, I'm gonna shoot at your cars. And he old 44 Magnum, snub nose Smith and Wesson. I would say probably a frame, the snub nose chrome. And where we lived, you could come off the highway. It was like a full quarter mile. So you could come off the highway to the city street and there was no light. So you had a good quarter mile. And them back then, them means back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was still, you could go to the dealer and buy sports cars. So a couple of them Hemis came driving by and he heard them rumbles, went in his car, stood out in the street and boom, 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 shot at both of their asses. And sure enough, I was with him in the pool hall later. And the motherfuckers didn't say shit after he done shot their cars up. Never any retaliation or shit. He saw both of the motherfuckers that came in there, and he still had that 44 Magnum on him. Hell, I shot my first gun, which was a 38. My uncle had a chrome a Chrome 38 Special Smith, and I was 5 years old. He was shooting in the back, and I was like, shit, let me try that. So he stared behind. He was like right behind me, and he put the gun in my hand. He's like, and I shot off 6. Boom, 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 boom. So I didn't learn how to hunt. I learned how to shoot pistols and shoot at shit. I didn't take no ROTC or none of that shit. What did Richard Pryor say? They don't shoot. How did he say it? They don't shoot cars, they shoot niggars. Richard Pryor. They don't shoot cars, they shoot niggars. He said, because the police have magnums too. And he's talking about when he shot his car up. His girl tried to take the Mercedes he bought her, so he shot on all the tires. And when it came, he said he ran back to the house because he said the police have magnums too. He said they don't shoot cars, they shoot niggars. But you know, people do change. I ain't no perfect motherfucker. I ain't never tried to say I was. I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment. I drive a car from 2005, but I don't want. I'm in good health. I play pickleball today. I play pickleball. It's 35 up here. Imagine this on the court. Like snow is shoveled to one side, and it's been dry the last couple of days. And we out there, we out there 35 degrees playing pickleball. My racket is wicked. Oh, I love it. Because with the bigger racket, I want to switch hands too much. With the little one, I just don't really need to. So I got in a couple miles playing pickleball. So, and it's funny. I don't know if people notice the sunsets have been more painted, beautiful than I've ever seen in my life. I live off a lake. It's a lake down here. And some of these nights and these sunsets is like a picture. It's been so beautiful. The reds that you see. And when I got done playing pickleball, a lot of the people had been there. So they kind of left. And I just kind of worked on my game a little bit. And then I just sat, and there was no, you know, up here we have ice skating, outdoor ice skating. We have houses where you can get from like a little trailer that has heat, but you can skate. The place don't close till 10 o'clock. It's free. But I noticed nobody was skating, and I was just sitting there, and I was looking at this beautiful sunset and just these pretty reds. And I told the part before where the people could slide down the hills, and just I'm looking at mounds. You know, I'm looking at mounds because you know, all this area was all of it mounds everywhere. Wisconsin was nothing but a state full of mounds that they've destroyed all of them. But you just look at everything, and you're like, damn. This is all mounds all around. And so even the where the court play is top of a mound, if you really look at it. So I was able to get some good meditation, just speak some thankfulness for living down here, because I feel this is truly holy ground. This is once was Lakota. Lakota ran all this shit, and these people took the big lake from them and gave them the little lake. They took Prior Lake and gave them Spring Lake, which ain't near as big. Prior Lake it's a long part where you can just like you in a boat. It's like shit. It's a long part where you can just drive. Where Lake Minnetonka, where for Purple Rain and shit, that's a huge lake where it'd be yachts on that bitch. This lake, it don't really be no yachts on it, but decent size. You can have 15, 16 foot, 20 footers you still can have. Jet skis like a motherfucker, but it's a long part where it's just cool to cruise down because it's really long where you just go a couple miles worth of just, you know, cruising. Well, thank you. I'm 60, so well, thank you. I try. I try. I got good taste, if nothing else. I know how to dress, if nothing else. New Year's, we're probably going to the casino because my son's 18, so he can get in there. And like, it's kind of bomb. Drinks be cheap. Be a lot of bitches up in there. A lot of motherfuckers want to do meth. Motherfuckers want to do meth. That's why I say this before is they should quit arresting their most popular customers. All people down here want to do, some of these good boys, all they want to do is they want to do meth and stay up all night and gamble. And to me, I say, why arrest your favorite customers? I think that they should have like you can cigarettes in the tent because now At first, you could smoke in the casinos. I guess there was so many complaints. Now you can't. But to me, I say let them do meth. That's what I say. Go out there, and now they want to follow in your car or put the camera. What are they doing out there in the car? It's funny when motherfuckers go out the car and screw, but it's a lot of stolen cars that end up at the casino too. Like, motherfuckers are so stupid that they'll steal a car to take it to the casino. I don't understand that, but that's what you see these dumb motherfuckers do. So I guess like they steal the car and then they need meth, so they have to go to the casino to get the meth in the stolen car. In there, my kind of party. Oh yeah, we're gonna so we're going out there, and it's like there's like parties within parties out there, and it's like little rooms where you can individual gambling, but there's one room that if you get there before a certain time, like 9 or 10, you can get in there free if you go in there early. But like, say you get there after 10, the shit is like $100 to get in this shit. But if you go early, you get in free. You go early, you get the band, you get in free. And they just ask that you come back in at 10. If you out at 10, you got to pay to get back in. But it's a bathroom in there, it's drinks, it's cheap. And it's a live band. And it's last time I went 19, I think Mint Condition was the band, the house band in there they're playing. So we'll probably go out there. I'm not a gambler. That slot machines, I like shooting craps. I like real roulette tables, not that bullshit. Craps on a computer. What the fuck is that? Roulette on a computer. I saw this one lady stick $500 in a fucking electronic roulette. Roulette and craps are two games as filling games. I told you before, I was with this motherfucker that passed in Tahoe. This motherfucker threw straight passes. And you know all they do to try to break your luck? After 3 rolls of winning, they changing the dice. They looking at them, they put the calipers on them to see what's going on, switch your dice. And this old dude talked shit to him. He said, I don't give a fuck what y'all do. You can switch the dice every time. I'm going to hit. And this was bank. Now, I don't know if some of y'all understand what I'm saying is there's some kind of, when you shoot craps, it goes over a hump. So you got to shoot it, and it shoots your dice over a hump. You can still fix that. And then another game, you got to throw them and bank them off the wall. You can really cheat that way. But either way, I knew a dude that he could throw the shit and he could make he could make one dice spin and the other dice would just slide. He would shake these motherfuckers in his hand, but when he released them, one dice would spin, he could make that other dice slide. And this motherfucker, so in Michigan, we play what's called stick 'em. We go hand to hand. So if I'm running the crap game, I'm shaking them and I'm shooting to you, you can't do nothing but throw. You can't do nothing but throw. And you get 2 catches before, his number comes. But that's how we play. We play hand. We call it hand to hand or sticking them. One of the baddest women I've ever encountered is up there where you are. Oh, okay. I'll tell you. Pretty women. I saw this rarely chick. She was Jewish faith, but she was one of them Jewish faith people from Israel. She was probably the prettiest woman I ever saw up here. Now, the little girl that used to work with me, the young lady Dana had the beauty, and I've talked about her before. She had blue eyes, blonde hair, but she was truly a chick where that song went, the men all paused. Wherever she went, people paused. She was that pretty, where people paused and looked at her. It was like, we would go to the Mall of America, and how you just walk by people wouldn't walk by her. Everybody that saw her would like kind of glance at her. Like they would try not to, but everybody that passed her would glance. She had that kind of beauty. I mean, her shit just radiated. And she was a silly, goofy chick, but her beauty, she was probably the prettiest woman I ever met. But this Israeli chick that I encountered, that chick was bad. She was bad. She wasn't, she didn't have a super big nose, but she was like about my complexion, like a sandy brownish, not really blonde, but a sandy brownish hair. Bad. She was about 5'11". That chick was bad. She was probably them, but Dana was prettier than her. But that Israeli chick, woo, she was pretty. But Dana was even prettier than her. I think her name Dana. Silly chick though. Silly shit. She'd always put my clothes on and shit. Like I had when the Marlins first came out, I had all these what is that? The plasticky like jumpsuits. Remember the jumpsuits used to, maybe even the Nike jumpsuit, that plasticky like shit, you know. And she loved wearing my big old clothes for some reason. That just was funny as hell to her. We would go out just wearing old clothes, didn't get it. She loved it, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Wear the shit. But to her, that shit was fun to wear my big clothes. um, I've said before, it's a lot of ugly people in Wisconsin. Wisconsin probably has the ugliest people in the country. Um, I used to ref, and I would see all these ugly children, and then at the end of the games, I would see all these ugly. Yeah, she just went on my table. I'm gonna get you, cat. But I would see all these ugly parents with all these ugly children. So Wisconsin has a lot of ugly people in Wisconsin. The windsuits, yeah, the windsuits, that plasticky stuff, yeah, the windsuits. Because Nike had it like that. Them kind of that light material, like what material, like plasticky like stuff, but light, yeah, real light material. But this was mid '90s kind of stuff. So how long I've been going? Okay, I got to get my ass up in the morning. Ah, but I guess I done told enough old man stories. I appreciate y'all listening. Oh, I did say, I'll say this, anybody catch this. I understand a lot of people, like my mother. My mother gets really depressed during these holidays. And I just want to, I'll say this. Like when I was young, great grandparents, great uncles, greats, you guys might skin a cat. What are you doing? But I mean, we had massive extended families. As I said before, even Christmas, we didn't have turkeys for Christmas. When I was a little boy, we had. When I was a little boy, we didn't put stars on trees. We put pheasant feathers on the trees. And that's why I call our family the Southwestern clan of the Wanapatonkans. We're the pheasant clan. We would be the pheasant clan, and that comes from my great grandfather. But we had all this large extended family. My aunt had 7 children. Uncle had, my mother only had 2, but cousins, and like I called all my cousins uncle or aunt. I didn't call any of them by their names. These was like my second cousins, my mother's first cousins, but I called them all uncle or aunt out of respect. And my mother, seeing her parents, of course, and seeing my great grandparents pass, seeing her parents pass. Give me a second to get this cat. What are you messing with? Where are you at? You are somewhere not supposed to be. What are you messing with? Oh, okay. All right. She wasn't. She's messing with a bag. I let her tear up bags. I don't care. But so I've watched 3 generations go away in my life. I watched 3 generations go away. She's watched 4. She's watched 4 generations go away. And imagine that you had like a lifetime, 30 years of these wonderful Christmases. But then your children grow, your parents age, families move on. The only family is each other here. There's other aunties here that we've heard of the family, but we're not close to them. It's like my boys, her, my children, my 4 children, and me, and her. This is the connection. And so the holidays aren't like that anymore, where we go around massive amount of people. It's just there's 7, 8 of us, that's going to be together tomorrow. And there are a lot of people around the country like that. There are a lot of people that this time of year doesn't bring joy. again, the Satan Santa. I've always looked at it like this too. I looked at Christmas as a way of celebrating our children, showing your children you did what was done for you. I've told this story before, maybe on my another channel, but like one time, like I used to get my brother like this. I remember one time I wrapped a boot, but I put the $6 million man boot. I wrapped it all together so when my brother picked it up, it would look like just one of my boots. And so he was crying to my mom, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm in this shit." He's cussing her out, and he's about to get his ass whooped, and he's crying, and it is just like, open the damn thing. He's like, "I'm not opening it. It's just a boot." And he opens it, and there's a $6 million man. I did my son similar. So my son threw all the gifts, and I gave him a pair of Timberland boots, but he wanted the Xbox, the Halo Edition Xbox. So I give him the Timberland boots, and I could read his eyes. His eyes like, oh, because as he was going through each gift, he's like, which one is my big gift? Which one is my big gift? So he opens the Timberland boot, and he knows. He knows us. He knows our richness, and he's like, okay, this is my big gift. That was the look on his face. Like, but he was okay with it. I mean, he's a gracious young man. He was okay with it. Steve's like, okay, I'm disappointed I didn't get what I wanted, but okay. And so all the gifts was ready. Brendan, did you get all the gifts? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, there's more gifts for you. He's like, no, they're not. I brought them all out. I said, I think you didn't look. He just printed in there, and he, of course, found the Halo Edition Xbox. So that, for me, was special for me. And I used to go all out. I remember one Christmas, I said this before, I was a security company. We were supposed to get paid like every 2 weeks we got paid. So say we were supposed to pay Friday. This is a Friday. We're almost to the point of getting another check. You know what I'm saying? We've gone almost 3 weeks without getting paid. And this, we've got Christmas Eve. So we get our checks on Christmas Eve. I've got to do all this rush buying it. But this is how assholes. And they had to go 30 miles to drop the checks off. This is how assholes they were. And then they did that shit again on New Year's Eve. They we were supposed, we got on Christmas Eve, we were supposed to get paid again, like right after Christmas. And they didn't pay us again. I walked off the job. I ain't go in. I was like, we didn't get paid. I turned back around and left. They went, oh, we got to write you. I'm like, fuck you. Who writing them up for not getting our checks? Like Sir Childs when he talks about San Antonio fat girls. Just like Milwaukee only got, or I was gonna say, Wilson only got Milwaukee. All the melon they live in. Oh gosh, where are all my books from? It's Kenosha. It's right on Lake Michigan, not Kenosha. But the black folks walking in this little city, it'll come to me in a minute. But that's it. But it's go to Wisconsin and see. Go to see. That's why they talk about his cheese there. Then people looking like the cows. But I'm not saying this off 1 year, 2 years. I'm saying this off of almost 18, 20 years of going to Wisconsin every weekend and working. I've seen a bunch of ugly children and ugly parents. Well, I live in Wisconsin. The people aren't that bad. Yeah. Once you cross the border, the people start looking a little better. When you go from Wisconsin to Minnesota, like when you go into Hudson, Wisconsin, into what would be Wood, whatever it's called, Woodbridge. That called as you come into the border, whatever those little towns is outside of St. Paul. The people start looking better. They looking better. As you cross into the border, the people like on the Matrix, the people just start poof, pretty people. Like you be in the car drive, damn, look at all these ugly people. Then you get into Minneapolis, like, hey, people aren't ugly. You look in the car, you're not as ugly as them back there. You're not as ugly. You stop and eat. My mother and I stopped and eat the last before we came, and I was just kind of laughing. I was looking at all these bugs and like, look at this here. We was eating, and I'm like, Mom, look at all these people. Into her. I was like, look at all these ugly people. Because it was children sitting in front. I was like, look at all these little ugly children. She was like, you're kind of right. Like, what? Look at all these people that's ugly. And she's like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right. So you'd be like happy to get out of Wisconsin. Racine. So black folks live in Milwaukee and Racine. That's it. That's it. Milwaukee and Racine. Racine is right on Lake Michigan. Racine would be, you have to go, trying to think. You go to Kenosha. Is Racine, can't be south. So Racine must be west of Kenosha. No, have to be slightly north. Imagine it's slightly north. But that's the pockets of where black folks live. There ain't no folks in Wisconsin. Hell, there ain't no black folks here. Or melanated people, as I say, not really. We're like 3 million people. It's only 250,000 melanated people. It's more here. It's more than melanated people here. Melanated. It's more Hmong in this. They kicked me out for a second. But yeah, it's more Hmong. My battery couldn't be dying. But yeah, it's more Hmong here. They brought, what, right after Vietnam, 77, 78, they brought hundreds of thousands. It's almost 500,000 Hmong. I could be wrong, but not much. It's between 300,000 to 600,000 Hmong, because traditionally the Hmong are Chinese people that lived in Vietnam. They're Chinese people, but lived in Vietnam. We got Mountain Yard people. I don't know anybody ever. Mountain Yard, they look more, if you saw them, they're darker, curly hair. Burmese. I don't know if people ever met Burmese people. They tend to be a little more darker, curly like hair too. That's one thing I like here is you see everybody. That just melanated and Europeans. It's everybody here. And my children grow up friends of all different nationalities. What do we say nowadays? You got Europeans, melanated, and you got people from Mexico. So, and there are a lot of people from Mexico up here too. Not in the number, but this is I said before, I think they lie about the number of Europeans in this country. So this story before, if you go upper again, these little, all the people, I think there's 3.5 million people in the Twin Cities. I think the total state is 5 million. So the rest of the state is dispersed of 2 million people. A lot of people live in, I talked about the hospital city of Rochester, where the medical clinic is. You've got Duluth, which is way up north on the border of Wisconsin. I mean, way up, almost Canada. Then you got St. Cloud, hockey colleges. But a lot of the dairy business kind of borders Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is dairy. But a lot of people from Mexico, a lot of Latinos are filling in them jobs up there. And the lie they tell is they say that a lot of people that grew up on them farms went to college and didn't want to do that kind of business. Now, I'll show you where this is a lie. I coached a basketball team in Michigan called Martin High School, kind of outside of Grand Rapids, kind of stuck between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. We had a day where we were celebrating all seniors during basketball. We had one person going to college. I don't know if he played college basketball or not. Everyone else said, I'm going to work on my family farm. I'm working on my family. My daughter's uncle married a girl that he raised cattle. Like I told you this story before. We were going on Thanksgiving one time, and we got out the car, and I'm hearing this ping, ping, and I'm clearly hearing shots. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I go into, I figured out it was coming from barn, and I see my daughter's uncle's father-in-law, and he was the elfy, nasty little motherfucker, but he was shooting the shit out these crows, these little birds that was eating his cows, and we had fun shooting birds and shit. And I bring him up because this motherfucker, I never met him one time that he didn't stink. Wasn't dirty, and his wife was fine as hell. I never figured out. Now she had went through cancer and shit, but this woman was pretty, And I'm looking at him like, he looked like Yosemite Sam. You know, Yosemite Sam for Bugs Bunny. He looked like that, but a dude about 5'3". Not as chubby, but same gruffy beard, ugly, but he always stink. And here's this pretty, and I'm like trying to make it understanding. I didn't understand that one. Like, damn. I, looking at her and looking at him, looking at her, looking at him. Guess that's why they had one child, but it's like, ooh, ooh, he always stink. Always stink. He was funny though. He was funny, cool. But and that was the same day where I told my brother-in-law not to stick a goddamn frozen turkey in that hot goddamn grease. I told him, do not do it. Oh, it'll be fine. My friend did it. I started stepping back. He's like, why are you stepping back? Nothing's going to happen. He stuck that turkey in there and that shit shot up in the air. And the funny part was when it landed, it blew up. That shit was funnier than a motherfucker. And I was like, I told you so. He's like, well, my friend said he. I'm like, I told you not to do it, dumbass. But that shit, I backed up. And that shit, he ain't back up. That shit went right by his face. And that turkey hit that hot grease and it shot it up. That shit went right in front of his face and went up. That's why I backed up. Like, fuck this. But it was funny when it landed, blew apart. That shit was funny. Well, I do have to get up early. Got a lot of running to do. Hope I didn't spoil it for the Matrix for people. A lot of good information. Know it's a lot to go from one show to the other. That's kind of a lot of watching that, I understand. But I appreciate the support. I do. And I don't imagine I'm going to do another show till probably maybe see if then. But I'll say, even if I don't do another show before the new year, I want to say thank you, everybody that supported this show, this channel. In 7 or 8 months, able to achieve 1,000. I guess it don't even mean 1,000 subs anymore. You can go live without 1,000. Thanks to Crazy Sarge, you can go live without 1,000, especially with StreamYard. You can go. And I said this when I unloaded StreamYard before. StreamYard killed. One time I had OBS too, and StreamYard kicked me out of OBS. It locked me out of my OBS. So I hadn't been able to use OBS. I was supposed to email C over because he said they weren't supposed to do that. But when they got caught doing it, this was a year before. It was like as soon as I downloaded StreamYard, it kicked me off OBS where I couldn't use it. So, but yeah, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the comments. Of course, I removed those that say some stupid shit. If you said some clever shit, I would leave your comments up there. If you say something clever, what can I say? Everybody's not gonna get the rig sports. Everybody's not gonna get that. Everybody is not going to get spirituality. I mean, that's just the way it is. Some people, it's for some people. That's where the term being woke mean waking up in your spirituality. You were asleep. You were asleep to organized religion. And then they even steal that tone. Awake being a liberal. You say steal things and they make it mean something that it really didn't mean. Woke meant that you woke up into your spirituality. What it meant for 20 years. That's why the Gnostic Bibles talks about, get out of your sleeping. Wake up. What you're waking up to. You're waking up to the real world. You're waking up to your spiritual side. But now woke means liberal. Bullshit. But I thank you. As I said before, if it's one person watching me, I'll give it just like I'll give it every time. I'll give it a mile. So as I end this, and which possibly could be the last broadcast of the year, and I'm struggling not to sneeze, I say more. It all starts with a gentle sadness. They came from the original homeland, knew that they had an exact number of years and days before they would disappear off the earth as a culture and a lifestyle. But the civilization would build to a gentle love. They lived in the Creator's day and knew how to separate cycles in the great serpent. And as the mind would say, I am another yourself, so treat me the way you would treat yourself. This has been the Mountain Show. Thank you for joining me on the Galactic Patio with your Galactic Daddy-O. I am Aid Wind. Until we meet again.